You move through the world, feeling its weight pressing on your shoulders, yet you cannot pinpoint where it comes from. Every choice you make, every opinion you hold, seems your own. But is it? Or is it a carefully constructed illusion, a path paved by forces you never consciously agreed to follow? The world smiles and insists that you are free, but freedom is an elegant lie. There is a system, subtle and pervasive, that bends your perceptions, nudges your desires, and teaches you what to see and what to ignore. You think you choose, but in reality, you have been trained to stay blind. Consider the patterns surrounding you. The news you consume, the trends you chase, the invisible hierarchies that dictate what is admired, feared, or ridiculed. Each fragment of your daily life is carefully engineered to elicit a response, to guide your thoughts along invisible tracks. And you follow them without awareness, believing that your path is carved by your own hand. Do you feel the contradiction? The life you live is vivid and real to you, yet its structure is foreign, imposed, artificial. It masquerades as normality, and because it is everywhere, you accept it as truth. But look closer. Listen to the quiet moments between the noise, the hesitation before you speak, the unease that creeps in when you face a question with no pre-packaged answer, the dissonance that arises when your instinct disagrees with what you are taught to value. That is the faint echo of your own self, struggling to assert its reality against a tide of manufactured expectations. And yet, it is easy to ignore. The system is patient. It does not demand obedience. It offers comfort. It whispers that conformity is safety, that agreement is wisdom, that distraction is normal. And so, you stay blind, not because you cannot see, but because it has taught you not to look. Ask yourself, how much of your anger, your fear, your shame, even your joy, is truly yours? How many of your decisions are born from reflection, and how many are rehearsed behaviors, responses honed by repetition and social design? Every day, small mechanisms shape your mind. The praise of others, the ridicule of strangers, the subtle cues of authority and expectation. They are invisible hands, molding not your environment, but your perception of it. And in this molding, a quiet insanity spreads, one that feels natural and undeniable, until it becomes your reality. And yet, even in this carefully constructed blindness, a question lingers. What if you could recognize it? What if you could see the invisible currents that guide your thoughts, the programming that whispers in your ears every moment you live? Would you resist, or would you fall back into the comfort of the familiar? The answer is not obvious, for the very system that holds you captive rewards acquiescence and punishes awareness with isolation, uncertainty, and doubt. To see clearly is to face the risk of solitude, the burden of self-knowledge, and the terrifying responsibility of choice. So the stage is set. You are no longer merely living. You are awakening to the possibility that everything you believed was natural, inevitable, or yours may have been meticulously designed to keep you blind. And in that awakening, the first stirrings of rebellion begin. The blindness you feel is not a flaw in you. It is the result of design, a network of psychological, cultural, and philosophical forces that quietly shape your mind from the moment you were born. Think of it as a garden, meticulously planted, each seed chosen, each root guided toward a predetermined pattern. And yet, because the work is invisible, It feels as though the garden grew itself. In truth, it did not. The soil of your consciousness has been prepared, tilled, and fertilized by forces that do not wish for you to question, to explore, to see. Consider the human tendency toward conformity. Carl Jung wrote of the collective unconscious, a vast psychic layer where archetypes, symbols, and inherited patterns guide behavior in ways we rarely understand. Within this collective layer, societal norms operate as a subtle force, embedding rules and expectations in your mind long before you are aware of them. These norms are not merely social, they are psychological scaffolding, framing how you interpret experiences, how you judge yourself, how you respond to the world. Every instinct you trust, every urge you follow, has been, in part, conditioned by this invisible framework. You are not weak, you are programmed. Friedrich Nietzsche's insight cuts even deeper. He warned of the herd, the majority whose comfort lies in sameness, who punish those who deviate, who sculpt morality into chains disguised as virtue. The herd does not overtly coerce, it seduces. It teaches you to internalize limits, to celebrate mediocrity, to fear insight. And in this way, society programs you to stay blind. The pressure to conform is not a single shove, but a constant, subtle shaping of perception, one that feels natural, even moral. To resist is to risk isolation, scorn, or shame. And because the cost is high, your mind learns to embrace the blindfold willingly. Arthur Schopenhauer described a world driven not by reason, but by blind will, a force that propels you forward, shaping your desires without your conscious knowledge. This will does not act randomly. It is channeled by the structures surrounding you, education systems that reward repetition over curiosity, media that simplifies complexity into digestible narratives, industries that monetize distraction and obedience. Each structure, on its own, seems harmless. But together, they form a network that channels your energy into predictable patterns, erasing the boundaries between your authentic self and the roles you have been trained to play. Even contemporary psychology confirms what philosophers intuited centuries ago. Cognitive biases, confirmation bias, authority bias, the illusion of choice, serve as invisible levers, guiding your attention, shaping your memory, and coloring your perception. These mechanisms evolved to conserve energy and ensure survival, but they are exploited by systems that profit from predictability. Every advertisement, every trending story, every subtle cue of approval or disapproval leverages these biases. Your mind, wired to seek safety and certainty, absorbs these signals effortlessly, mistaking them for personal preference, when in reality, they are the fingerprints of design. Viktor Frankl, who observed the human search for meaning, even in the most extreme circumstances, reminds us that the inner life is both vulnerable and resilient. You're not merely a product of external pressures. You are capable of noticing, of questioning, of rising above. Yet most never do, because the programming is silent, pervasive, and disguised as inevitability. It whispers, "This is normal. This is reality. This is your choice." And because repetition is the architect of belief, the lie becomes indistinguishable from truth. The hidden problem, then, is not only external, it is internal. Your thoughts, emotions, and instincts, those you have trusted for your entire life, carry the residue of this programming. You are trained to accept distraction as attention, fear as wisdom, approval as self-worth. You are trained to misidentify your chains as freedom, your blindfold as vision. And because this conditioning is subtle, you do not see it, even as it guides every step, every judgment, every desire. Yet within this conditioning lies the paradoxical seed of awakening. Awareness is possible precisely because the system relies on your unawareness. The mind is capable of breaking its patterns, of noticing the invisible architecture of influence, of seeing the hidden hands that manipulate perception. But to reach this awareness, you must first understand the depth of the problem. You must recognize the machinery at work, not with shame, not with panic, but with clarity. Only then can the first cracks appear in the walls of your imposed blindness, revealing a glimpse of a reality that has been waiting silently for your eyes to open. And once you see these forces, both within and without, you begin to recognize the true cost of compliance, the subtle erosion of your autonomy, the quiet insanity of living in a world that trains you to accept its illusions. The hidden problem is not merely societal. It is psychological, structural, and existential. It is the reason why most live as shadows, believing themselves to be whole. It is why you feel the itch of unease, the flicker of doubt, the shadow of a question that refuses to settle. And it is why, without breaking the programming, freedom remains a concept, not a lived reality. You may not realize it, but the programming that surrounds you has already begun to shape your reality in ways that feel inevitable, natural, and undeniable. It does not strike with sudden force. It seeps, persistent and quiet, into the crevices of your mind. Your desires, your fears, your ambitions, all bear its mark. You are moving through a world that appears to be yours, yet every step is subtly guided, every choice preconditioned. And the strangest part is that you do not even notice. Think about the small decisions that accumulate into the life you lead, the media you consume, the conversations you prioritize, the habits you maintain. Each is influenced by invisible patterns, cognitive shortcuts, and cultural nudges designed to keep you predictable, manageable, and above all, compliant. Confirmation bias tells you that the world aligns with your beliefs, while authority bias convinces you to trust what others claim as truth. Your mind, wired for efficiency and safety, interprets these nudges as certainty, turning manipulation into a feeling of personal clarity. You believe you see the world as it is, but in reality, you are seeing it as it has been curated for you. Now consider how this shapes your emotions. Anxiety is amplified, not merely by circumstance, but by the constant tug of unseen expectations. Your fear of rejection, of disapproval, of standing apart, is reinforced by patterns that reward conformity and punish independence. Shame becomes internalized, guilt becomes habitual, and doubt masquerades as introspection. Even joy is conditioned. What you celebrate, what you desire, is subtly chosen for you, as if your instincts were a playlist someone else compiled. Each day, the machinery works silently, aligning your internal world with external patterns until the distinction between genuine choice and manufactured preference is nearly impossible to perceive. And the consequences extend beyond the individual. Entire societies are shaped by the same invisible forces, producing collective behaviors that seem spontaneous but are meticulously orchestrated over time. Trends, fears, ideologies, and even morality itself are subtly aligned to maintain order, obedience, and predictability. Groups move as if possessed by a single will, yet each participant believes they act freely. Social norms become a cage, not of steel, but of shared thought patterns, guiding millions toward outcomes that feel inevitable, even natural. You are caught in both currents, personal and collective, each reinforcing the other, and both invisible. Neurologically, your brain reinforces these pathways. Repetition strengthens synaptic connections, turning external influence into instinct. Each time you accept an idea without question, each time you follow a pattern without awareness, you are literally rewiring yourself to accept it more deeply. Over time, this creates not just behavioral conformity, but perceptual conformity. The world itself begins to feel smaller, simpler, more certain, because your mind has been trained to interpret it that way. Paradoxically, the very tools meant to help you navigate life, reason, judgment, memory, become the instruments of your captivity. And yet, because the system rewards invisibility, most never perceive it. Discomfort is dismissed, unease is rationalized, doubt is silenced by busyness or distraction. The consequences are not immediately catastrophic, which is why they are so effective. Your autonomy erodes slowly, imperceptibly, until one day you realize that the life you lead, the beliefs you hold, the emotions you feel, are not fully yours. You glance around and nothing feels authentic. Decisions that once seemed spontaneous now feel repetitive. Happiness, fear, even love bear the faint trace of someone else's design. The emotional toll is profound, yet subtle. You feel disoriented, restless, and anxious without understanding why. You sense that something is missing, though you cannot articulate it. There is a tension between the life you are living and the life your instincts long to lead. And here lies the cruel brilliance of the programming. It ensures compliance while fostering the illusion of freedom, keeps you trapped while giving you the illusion of choice, and cultivates a quiet dissatisfaction that never becomes urgent enough to demand rebellion. This is the unseen consequence, a life lived under the guidance of invisible hands, a mind shaped without consent, a world experienced as reality when it is merely a construct. The cost is profound, yet silent. Your perception, your autonomy, your very sense of self. And unless you begin to recognize it, the machinery continues unabated, shaping not only your choices, but your very experience of reality. The question now emerges, and it is unavoidable. If the system has already shaped so much of your perception, how do you reclaim what is authentically yours? How do you break free from patterns you have lived inside your entire life without even realizing it? What does it take to awaken from a reality that has been carefully manufactured for your compliance? The answer is neither simple nor comforting. Yet it exists, and it waits for those who are willing to confront the machinery, to question the unquestioned, to see the invisible currents that shape their existence. The rebellion is not a single act. It is a process of awakening, a radical shift in perception that transforms the very foundation of how you live, think, and feel. Breaking free begins not with the world, but with yourself. The chains that bind you are invisible, but their weight is real. You have felt it in the quiet moments of doubt, in the unease that lingers after the applause fades, in the subtle whisper that questions whether your choices are truly yours. To rebel is not a matter of grand gestures or public defiance. It is an internal revolution, a refusal to accept the narratives imposed upon your mind. It's the act of noticing, of naming, of disentangling what belongs to you from what has been grafted onto you. The first step is awareness. You must observe your thoughts, your reactions, your impulses, without judgment. Watch how you respond to praise, to criticism, to authority. Notice which ideas excite you, which scare you, and which feel like second-hand emotions borrowed from the world around you. This is the beginning of sovereignty, the conscious act of distinguishing your authentic self from the programming that seeks to define you. It is uncomfortable, even terrifying, because you will encounter the vast territory of your own conditioning. But discomfort is the doorway to freedom. History provides countless examples of individuals who glimpsed this machinery and chose to resist it. Socrates, questioning the assumptions of Athenian society, faced exile and execution rather than abandon the pursuit of truth. Galileo, defying centuries of celestial doctrine, risked imprisonment for the clarity of his observations. Even today, pioneers of thought, philosophers, writers, scientists, must navigate currents of conformity to assert a vision that is authentically their own. Their courage is instructive. Freedom begins when you decide to see what others have been trained to ignore. And yet, rebellion is not only an intellectual act, it is profoundly practical. You reclaim autonomy by choosing what to consume, what to believe, and what to value. Strip away the habits, the media, the relationships, and the distractions that shape you without consent. Examine the loyalties you hold, the assumptions you accept, the routines you follow. Question them relentlessly. Ask, do I follow this because it is mine, or because it has been given to me? This discipline is not punitive, it is liberating. Every act of conscious selection rewires your mind, strengthens your perception, and enlarges your capacity for authentic choice. Paradoxically, true rebellion often begins with stillness. In a world designed for noise, distraction, and constant stimulation, choosing to be present with yourself, without the clamor of trends, opinions, and external pressures, is radical. It allows you to hear the faint, authentic voice beneath the programming. It is in these moments of stillness that the patterns become visible, the invisible hands become tangible, and the blindfold begins to loosen. Silence is not passive. It is a weapon against the subtle insanity that surrounds you. But liberation also demands courage. To see clearly is to stand apart, and standing apart invites scrutiny, doubt, even hostility. The system resists awareness because awareness threatens its power. It will test your resolve by offering comfort disguised as safety, by tempting you with the familiar, by whispering that the risk of solitude outweighs the reward of freedom. This is the crucible of rebellion, to choose clarity over comfort, to embrace uncertainty over predictable illusions, to endure isolation in order to reclaim authenticity. Practical rebellion, then, is iterative. Start with small acts of conscious defiance. Speak your truth in private or in public. Reject one assumption that has gone unexamined. Interrupt a habit that reinforces compliance. Observe how your mind responds and learn. Each step erodes the machinery's hold, slowly restoring the space where genuine choice can emerge. Over time, patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting begin to align with your true self, rather than the scripts handed to you by invisible forces. And finally, remember this: rebellion is not a singular victory, but a lifelong commitment. The forces that shape perception are relentless, adaptive, and subtle. They will continue to whisper, distract, and mislead. But now, armed with awareness, discipline, and courage, you have the power to resist. You can observe without succumbing, choose without being coerced, and live in alignment with your own mind, not the mandates of a constructed reality. The rebellion is not an act against the world. It is an act for yourself. It is the realization that blindness is a condition, not a necessity, and that every moment offers a choice to follow the current of pre-programmed expectation or to swim toward clarity, autonomy, and truth. This is the path of self-liberation, the first real step toward a life you can claim as authentically yours. And as you take that step, the world begins to shift. Patterns that once felt unbreakable tremble. Familiar illusions begin to dissolve. You discover that your mind, once conditioned to obey, has the capacity to see, to question, to reclaim its sovereignty. The rebellion is underway. Not as a spectacle, not as a declaration, but as a subtle, enduring transformation of perception. At the end of this journey, when the noise has quieted and the machinery of manipulation is visible for what it is, a truth emerges, so simple, yet so profound, that it redefines everything you believed about yourself and the world. The ultimate realization is that freedom was never a gift granted by others, nor a destination to be reached. It has always been your birthright, quietly waiting beneath the layers of conditioning, silently observing as the world attempted to blind you. The chains were never permanent. The blindness was never inevitable. It was never real. You begin to see that the very patterns that once controlled you, society, culture, authority, collective expectation, are not omnipotent. They are constructed, fragile, dependent on the consent of minds, like yours, to persist. When you awaken, even partially, their power begins to crumble. The illusions of inevitability, the whispered pressures to conform, the invisible hands that guided your decisions, none of it has intrinsic authority. It exists only because you allowed it to, only because your mind was trained to accept it without question. This realization carries a weight unlike any other. It is both exhilarating and terrifying. Exhilarating because you recognize the vast scope of what is possible when your mind is truly your own. Every choice, every thought, every feeling can be reclaimed and redirected with intention. Terrifying because it forces you to confront responsibility. There is no longer anyone or anything to blame for your perceptions, your beliefs, your mistakes, or your passivity. The freedom that has always been yours also demands courage, discernment, and accountability. Autonomy is not a passive inheritance. It is an active, continuous practice. And yet, within this responsibility lies beauty that the programmed world never revealed. To awaken is to become fully human, not as defined by norms or expectations, but in the raw, unfiltered sense of self. You feel your mind stretching, reshaping, recognizing the infinite possibilities of thought, choice, and emotion. The world itself does not change, rather your perception of it shifts. What once seemed rigid now feels malleable. What once seemed predetermined now feels navigable. You discover that reality is not a cage, but a canvas, waiting for the brush of conscious intention. The paradox is undeniable. The very forces that attempted to blind you are powerless in the face of clarity. Their influence depends on unawareness, on passive compliance, on the assumption that you will never question. Once awareness dawns, the machinery is exposed, and its authority dissolves. You understand that the apparent constraints of society are often less restrictive than the mental cages you have carried yourself. The rebellion is no longer a struggle. It is recognition. You are already free. You simply had to remember. This ultimate truth does not erase difficulty or uncertainty. Life remains complex, unpredictable, and at times painful. But the nature of that struggle is fundamentally different. No longer are you battling to reclaim what was taken from you. You are choosing how to move, think, and act within a world that is fully visible to you. Every decision is deliberate. Every perception is filtered through the lens of consciousness. And in that clarity, there is power. The power to refuse manipulation, to act with integrity, to embrace uncertainty without fear. And here's the most profound aspect of all. Freedom is not a solitary achievement. By awakening, you influence others, not by imposing ideas, but by embodying clarity. Your presence alone becomes a subtle act of rebellion, a signal that alternative ways of seeing, being, and choosing are possible. The blindfold of conformity is weakened not only in your mind, but in the minds of those who witness your unshackled existence. Awareness spreads quietly, like a candle flickering in a dark room. One awakened mind can illuminate countless others, not by force, but by the irresistible example of autonomy. Finally, the cinematic truth reveals itself in the stillness of realization. Nothing external can bind you unless you allow it. No system, no opinion, no expectation has intrinsic power over your consciousness. You are the observer, the curator, the architect of your own mind. You are the ultimate authority in the only realm that truly matters: your perception, your thought, your awareness. And once you accept this, once you fully inhabit it, a profound liberation emerges. A freedom so vast that it transforms every thought, every emotion, and every moment of your life into something genuinely your own. The world may still attempt to distract, mislead, or manipulate. Others may remain blind, obedient, compliant. But you have discovered the most powerful paradox of all. Clarity is invincible. It cannot be taken, coerced, or destroyed. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you choose for yourself, you cannot be fully constrained. The machinery may persist, but it no longer defines you. You are awake, aware, and sovereign. The ultimate rebellion has already been won, not in defiance of the world, but in the profound reclamation of your own mind. And in that awakening, a new question arises, not of what you must escape, but of what you will create. For a mind free from illusion does not merely survive. It shapes, envisions, and builds a reality worthy of its clarity.